So now that we know what standard form is, which is an example of this shown right here, let's look at how we can use this to help us graph equations and see what's the same and what's different. So one of the things that is a drawback to standard form, and it's really, I think, the only drawback to it, is that we can't just pull our y-intercept out of thin air anymore off the equation like we could the other ones. These, they aren't written in that form, and so you can't just look at it and say, oh, well, there's b. It's right there. It's off to the right. It's all by itself. I know what sign it is because it's the sign that's in front of it. These are a little different. But what's nice about these is that finding the x-intercept is a lot easier, and actually finding the y-intercept is pretty quick too. So probably winds up taking about the same amount of time. But what I like about this one is you use the same process for both. So let's look at what that process is. So let's start with trying to find our x-intercept, all right? I like to do x first because it comes first in the alphabet. So x-intercept means I'm going to have something that's the point x0, all right? And we just got to figure out what is x. So what that tells us is if I have this equation 4x minus 6y equals 12, it means that my y-coordinate, all right, we'll use red, means my y-coordinate is going to be 0. So when I rewrite this equation with that understanding, we have 4x minus 6, and then it's times 0, right? Because my y-coordinate is 0. And what that effectively does is it takes the term that the y is attached to, and it gets rid of it. It makes it vanish. So you wind up with 4x and then minus 0 equals 12. So in other words, 4x equals 12. And I showed all these different steps, but pretty much you can take this equation, and if you know you're looking for your x-intercept, you can just get rid of this whole thing right here and say, oh, it goes to 4x plus 12. And that's what I like about this, is you can actually almost, sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm doing all kinds of weird things right now. You can actually figure out your intercepts very easily. You can almost do it on some of these without even having to write things down, although I always encourage writing things down because I think you make fewer mistakes when you write things down. So 4x equals 12. Let's divide both sides by 4 to get x by itself and get its coefficient to be 1. And you get x equals 3. So that means my x-intercept is the point 30. So I would go over to 3. I'd put a point on my x-axis. And now I'm going to do the same thing, all right, to find my y-intercept. For my y-intercept, I know that that is going to be the point 0, y. Okay, and then we're going to use pink, right, for our y. And then you're going to have this equation still, 4x minus 6y equals 12. And now, because I know that I'm finding my y-intercept, I am going to substitute 0 in for my x. So I'm gonna take this 0, and it's going to go in here, right? I actually put this in the wrong spot here. So that's going to go right there. So you're going to have the equation. I'm going to move over here. You're going to have 4 times 0 minus 6y equals 12. And this 4 times 0 basically goes away and becomes 0. So that leaves you with negative 6y equals 12, which, like I said before, is if you know which intercept you're looking for. If I know I'm looking for my y-intercept, I just take the x and I get rid of it, right? And that's what's great about this. And I teach kids in person in class. I tell them, oh, you can take your thumb, you can put it over the variable, or that term, right? But this, I want you to understand why we can do that, all right? And you can do that because your x is 0 because you're looking for your y-intercept. So you have negative 6y equals 12. If you're going to solve this, all right, we're going to move up here. Sorry, I'm making all kinds of mistakes with this thing. So that would mean that let's take and divide both sides by negative 6. So you have 12 divided by negative 6. And we're dividing by negative 6 because it's a negative coefficient that we want to get rid of. So you need to make it negative. So y equals 12 divided by negative 6 is negative 2. That means the point we're looking for is the point 0, negative 2. You go on your y-axis, you go down to negative 2, and then you have your line that you would draw through it right there. Hopefully better than me. So finding these is pretty straightforward as long as you understand what you're making 0 and for which one. All right, so let's do one more example. So 2x minus y equals 6, and I like this example because it presents us with something kind of weird here that I'll talk about in a second. So we have, for your x-intercept, we know that's going to be the point x0. So we're going to make y 0 on this. So we're going to go 2x minus 0 equals 6. Well, that just becomes 2x equals 6. And then you divide both sides by 2. And then x is equal to 3, which means that that's the point 3, 0. So let's take this and let's make this into, let me see what my y is going to be. All right, well, I'm going to move this up here like this, and you'll see y in a second. All right, sorry, that's a little high, but that should be on that line. So you've got, this is your y-axis, this is your x-axis, and so my x-coordinate is 3, so we'll put that right there. And now let's find my y-intercept. My y-intercept, you're going to make x 0, right? Because it's the point 0, y, so we got to put that in for x. So we're going to go 2 times 0 minus y equals 6. That effectively gets rid of that thing, and you're left with negative y equals 6. Notice I couldn't make the negative sign go away because that negative sign belongs to the y. All right? So whenever you have a variable that has a coefficient of 1 but has a negative in front of it, you can get rid of that negative sign just by multiplying both sides by negative 1. So negative 1 times negative y gives you positive y, and then 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. Another way of thinking of it that I think is kind of helpful is you think, if you've got negative y equals 6, right? Think about what that means. That means the opposite of y is 6. Well, if the opposite of y is 6, what's y? Well, it would be the opposite of 6, and the opposite of 6 is negative 6. So whichever method works for you is totally cool with me. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down is my negative 6. And then you take your line and you put it through. Like I said, I hope you're better at drawing than I am on this stupid notepad thing. So those are the examples I kind of want to show you for this. You'll have some examples where you're going, like on the next one, which I'm not going to walk all the way through, you'll notice that when you find your y-intercept, right? So in other words, you make x 0, so you have 5 times 0. This is for your y-intercept. Minus 2y equals 15. When you simplify it down, you're going to get negative 2y equals 15. Y is going to equal 15 over negative 2. You're going to get a fraction. But don't panic. Just understand that 15 over negative 2 is basically negative 7.5, right? 7.5. And it's negative 7.5 because of that negative sign. So you're going to get some fractional answers for some of these, but just, try to think what numbers are these between, and keep calm, and then plot them. So good luck with these.